Welcome, everyone. Each March, our nation celebrates Women's History Month to recognize the achievements of women past and present in the United States. From the beginning, women have been an integral part of American airspace. For 2021, the FAA's Women's History Month theme is Soaring to Your Position, Empowering Women to Executive Leadership at the FAA. I am Gioia Albi, the Acting Federal Women's Program Lead for the National Outreach Team for Diversity and Inclusion in the Office of Civil Rights at the FAA. I will be your moderator for today's distinguished panel of FAA female managers and leaders. Here at the FAA, our continuing mission is to provide the safest, most efficient aerospace system in the world. These women are a part of that system. I will speak with each panelist about how she got to where she is on her career path, and we will all learn how to be a better leader. Now, let me introduce our FAA speakers. First, Deloris D. Martin, Division Director, Management and Business Services. Jennifer Ross, Air Traffic Manager at the Air Traffic Control System Command Center, Air Traffic Services. Sadie Perez, Team Lead for the National Outreach Team for Diversity and Inclusion in the Office of Civil Rights. Ana Pena, Statistician on the Internal Policy Team, EEO Policy and Compliance in the Office of Civil Rights. And Shelley Malacker, Senior Advisor for the Labor and Employee Development Directorate in the Air Traffic Organization. Okay, panelists, let's get started. Each of you has a demanding career and a variety of other commitments. Tell me about when your passion for aviation and/or the FAA started. How young were you? What sparked your interest? Let's start with Dee.
Good afternoon, and thank you so much for including me on this esteemed panel. I'm honored to have the pleasure of knowing these ladies and participating in this momentous event with them. So my passion started, I grew up in rural South Carolina. I grew up of modest means, and I would be standing outside in the country and airplanes would be flying overhead, and I would look up, and being from modest means, air travel was not something that my family participated in very often, and I had never flown. But having the opportunity to look up at the sky and see these planes flying overhead near Charleston International Airport is where I grew up. I would often wonder where these people were headed and dream about the day that I might be able to fly in an airplane as well. If you fast forward a little bit, I think we all remember where we were when 9/11 happened. And I personally was working in an organization that was in the process of executing a very senior event and had a lot of senior people in the vicinity. And when 9/11 happened, my job was to make sure they were secured, that we took care of them and got them to a safe place and were able to lock down the base. And so that was, that event changed the landscape for me in terms of aviation and how exciting it is, but also how vulnerable it could be. And then fast forward from there, I found myself in a unique position of being able to work for a federal contractor as they were standing up the Transportation Security Administration, the TSA. And so then I was able to see from another perspective how important aviation safety is. And then fast forward from there, a few years later, I found myself at the FAA, Federal Aviation Administration, and I then felt like I was home. So that's my first taste of aviation was watching it happen. And I would say, you know, if you fast forward all of those years to today, I'm now a part of making it happen.
Oh, thanks, Dee. What a great story. And we have a similar background, although I was from Denver, but I remember sitting on the front porch and watching planes fly overhead in my grandparents' house. And that's actually how my love of aviation started, and the game of trying to figure out what airline they were by the color of their tails. So I think we have some of that in common for sure. But I think we also remember 9/11 and to see how that propelled your career to TSA and then the FAA. And thank you for all the service and all that you've brought to this agency. Okay, Jennifer, how about you?
Well, hello, everyone. I am honored to be with these women and honored to be asked onto this panel. My first start in aviation was a long time ago in the 80s. My parents were friends with an Olympic aerobatic, one of the first female Olympic aerobatic team members, Ellen Dean. And they got me a flight when I was 13 with her. So we did loops and barrels and just fell in love with that. It took a few years. I went to high school and then college, got married, had children, and was managing restaurants until the love of aviation started calling again around 27. So I went back to school to Embry-Riddle, did the aeronautical science and air traffic degree, and barely made it in at 30 and 8 months to an air traffic controller in Florida. Spent about 10 years there working, controlling traffic, traffic management, operational supervisor, before coming here to the command center. Started as a frontline supervisor here, worked through the national operations manager piece, and am now the air traffic manager here at the Air Traffic Control Systems Command Center. Really like this piece of it. It really shows how on a national scale, what all of our traffic management initiatives, what effect they have over the system, and really brings me back to the holistic love of aviation.
Great story. Boy, I wish I could go up in an Olympic aerobatic flight or any type of aerobatic flight, but unfortunately I get very airsick. So I'm glad that you were able to enjoy it and that it brought to you your love of aviation. And thank you also for all the time you spent here. And I think your story is interesting, the fact that you went to college or you got married, had kids, and then you managed restaurants and then came back to aviation. And that's one of the things we're trying to encourage people to spread the word. The FAA is a great place to come and start a second career and be able to find a new home. So let's move on to Sadie. Sadie, how about you?
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks, Gioia. And like the others have mentioned, pleasure being on this panel with all these wonderful women today. Like Jennifer, I had my first flight at 13, but it wasn't acrobatic. It was only a flight to Houston from Fort Worth, but you know, I felt good because I was by myself. So, but it would take me some time to find my career path to FAA. I was actually 20 years old at the time, and I was in college, being the youngest out of 7 kids, large Hispanic family. You know, we had to start work at an early age, and I was putting myself through school. And one of my girlfriends was working as a stay-in schooler. You know, we've had different versions of interns at FAA, but at the time they were hiring interns, and I actually got an internship position. Had no intention of staying with FAA, and as a matter of fact, I had a job as a file clerk. So it wasn't your traditional route when you think about FAA and all the technical fields that we have. I literally was filing a standard form 50s, and I'm going to date myself right now, but we actually had an entire file room with everybody's official personnel file, and there were 5 feet of paper that I had to take care of as a backlog. So you may think it was boring, but you know what it did for me? I read the 50s as I went through them, and I seen all the different occupations that FAA had. So I seen also, you know, the locations, the types of occupations. So at that point in time, I was like, you know, this is a lot bigger than I thought it was. So it was that first interaction that actually got me involved with FAA. Needless to say, I did fall in love with the mission. Similar to what Dee said, 9/11 also had an impact that really kept me after. At the time it happened, FAA used to have the Air Marshal program, and it was super small at the time. But what 9/11 did, it caused it to expand. It actually broke off to TSA in the sense of a bigger, more prominent presence on airplanes at that time. And I took a job as a detail in New Jersey. So small town girl from Fort Worth, Texas, going to New Jersey, and we were hiring thousands of air marshals at the time. So at that time, I seen it. It was like, you know what? FAA does have a huge impact on people's lives. And needless to say, I haven't left since. Been with the agency 28 years and had a myriad of different occupations. But needless to say, I did change my major from psych to business, but I still got to help people. So I'm with the agency now 28 years, and every occupation that I've had, up into my current one as a diversity advocate, all has impact on people. So it really has been about the passion for the mission of the agency. So that's how I found my way to love aviation. Thank you.
Thanks, Sadie. One of the things that when you talked about is working your way through college, and I too, coming from a larger family, and had to work my way through college. And the fact that you found an internship and you were able to find your way into the agency is a fantastic story, and one that I think we need to get out more, that this is a great place and an internship is a great place to start. And I too, like you, fell in love with the mission. And I, as somebody who works with you daily, I can definitely attest to the fact that you love people and you definitely are great with people. So thank you. Okay, Anna, what about you?
Hi all, thank you for having me here. I'm very grateful and honored to be here with all of you. You guys are inspiring me. I am inspired every moment. I was inspired to join FAA when I was in college. I was the first generation in my family to go to college, so I really didn't know what I was gonna do, but I was mainly focused that I wanted to work for the government. And I was a national security major. And when on my senior year, my first internship in the federal field was my freshman year. One of my friends pushed me. She was like, I think we could do it. And we went to a workshop and I ended up signing the application and I did it and I got in, and it was scary because I didn't know what to do. It was my first time leaving the city, the state that I'm from, away from my family. So I was exposed to so much. And I think I don't regret any moment. I had a lot of my family members, because they were very old school, they were putting things in my head, and I was like, well, I'm gonna do it because I really want to expose myself to more. So I did it, and here I am at FAA. I got my 4th internship at FAA when I was graduating college, and I ended up changing even my master. I love it so much. What I was hired to do data analytics for the Office of Civil Rights, and it opens my eyes to so much that I ended up changing my whole program from cybersecurity to data analytics. And I'm going to be 5 years since I was an intern at FAA. So I just started, I'm very new, and as I said in the beginning, all you ladies inspire me. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. Thanks, Anna, for joining us. Your story is one of my favorites. Just one of the first people to be able to go to college and everybody telling you not to go, and yet you took that risk and you came and you stepped out and you went into the internship. And again, like Sadie, what a fantastic opportunity, and giving you the exposure that you had to not only learn something, but completely change your master's degree and your career path. And as I often tell people, Anna is one of the best data person I've ever met. She's phenomenal. So I'm so glad that we have you and we convinced you and you do this for a living. So thanks for being here. Okay, Shelley, what about you?
Hi, thank you, Gioia. Good afternoon. I am also very excited and honored to be here today. So I can't say that I had a passion for aviation when I first came to the FAA. I just recently celebrated 35 years of federal service. I started right out of high school with the United States Postal Service as a letter carrier. And I did that because I was chasing the money. It was really good money for an 18-year-old to be making. But I went into leadership with the Postal Service. I did the supervisor, manager, postmaster, and I made a career change into the field of labor and employee relations, which I also held leadership positions. And I was there for 18 years. And I was intrigued by a posting at the Federal Aviation Administration. Frankly, I was afraid to fly. I didn't even like to fly. But I was intrigued by the complexities of their labor management program, and I was really intrigued by the mission. And so I made a move. After 18 years, I came to the FAA, and I went into leadership shortly after I got here, as Sadie would remember. I held the position of Director of LR Field Operations in the HR organization. And then I later took a detail to headquarters in the Air Traffic Organization as the Director of Technical Labor. And I can honestly say that once I got to FAA and I developed a deep appreciation for what everybody at FAA does and how everybody contributes in their unique way to just an amazing mission, the dedication to safety and what is we do in ATO, I'm just in awe every single day. And that's where I think my passion for aviation really developed. I am no longer afraid to fly. I have jumped out of an airplane, and I just have so much respect for the men and women at the FAA.
Great story, Shelley. And what your story tells me, along with everyone else's, is that every one of us has had a different road and a different path, and yet we've all found our way here. And there are common themes in this. We all have passion for the mission. We have passion for the dedication of the organization, dedication to safety. And I think you said something very important, and that is everyone at the FAA contributes. And that is absolutely true. And that's what makes it such a special place to come to every day. So thanks, Shelley. Okay, why don't we move on? Jennifer, you have had a demanding career and a variety of other commitments. Tell us one reason you have pursued additional leadership roles.
So a lot of times you look at problems or issues that you see that you want to fix, that you want to be the solution to that problem. So even with everything you're balancing, you know there's more that you can do. So rather than just say, well, I don't like that, or I don't like how that's going, you take a step out and you take the chance and have the courage to go out and say, I'm going to try to fix this. And, you know, make the changes where you can and push the needle where you can make those small changes inside of your organization. And then that starts to influence other pieces of the organization. Like Shelley was saying, we're all connected. So as you start to move your piece, it starts to help other people move their pieces too. And you become this coalition.
Thanks, Jennifer. Boy, I know what it's like to see all the problems and definitely want to fix them. But you said something very important, and that is to take a look at it and look at the small changes that you can make so that you get the small successes, and then you can continue to push the needle and influence. And then, as you said, we're all connected, and that's how the big changes happen at the end of the day. So thank you. Good point. Sadie, did you ever find yourself in a leadership role that you did not pursue? And if so, how did you get there?
Yeah, yes, thank you, Gioia, for that question. You know, I've held many positions with the FAA in my 28 years, starting in college. I just want y'all to remember that. But one of the things that I have to point out that the agency does really well, and I'd be remiss if I didn't mention it, is that they really take diversity and inclusion seriously. As an aging agency, especially a safety related agency, sometimes that's difficult. But in the 28 years that I've been with the agency, they've really made a concerted effort. So having said that, and to Jennifer's point of coalitions, I would say that my leadership role that I took on that was very unexpected, but it was the passion of the vision of that employee association that I found very interesting. But the agency has what they called employee associations. They're across the agency. There's 8 that are formal, 8 organizations. They're employee-based, nonprofit groups, and they have awareness for whatever you could think of, for Hispanics, for Blacks, for Asian Americans, for professional women controllers, technical women organization, gay and lesbian, LGBTQ. And then lastly, but not least, the National Disabilities Organization as well. A lot of them have been around a really long time. And one in particular, I was taken under the wing by some of the leaders in that organization, was the National Hispanic Coalition of Federal Aviation Employees. Needless to say that I see that as a second career because of the fact that it ran in tandem with my regular career with FAA. It was a collateral duty, and there was several opportunities to lead in that organization. And I held many hats, and I made it all the way up to national president, and that's definitely one I absolutely did not want. But it was something of a calling. And one thing I will tell you, and you'll probably hear it the rest of today through this panel, is that mentors pulled me up, and they recognized my talent. They pulled me in and they pushed me. And it was, one of the senior leaders that really kind of recognized my leadership capabilities and really kind of advised me to take the role on. But I attribute all the experience I got from that nonprofit work as a leader that really helped me tremendously in my career. Not only build my leadership skills, but it also did something that's been very valuable throughout my career, and I teach to my mentees, and that's relationship capital. I've been able to grow through my career at FAA from the little girl in Fort Worth, Texas, to this is my second stint in DC. I've been all over the nation, representing the agency. And I worked, I've been to the hills of Congress, worked with, secretaries and so forth. And that had a lot to do with that, in the sense that it helped me grow as an individual. And it also helped me see the bigger picture. So out of all the positions that I've had, and I've had many in FAA in my 28 years, I would say the president of the National Coalition, National Hispanic Coalition, Federal Aviation Employees. And I point that out more in particular for all of you who are watching. Sometimes it's not the traditional route of, hey, I'm going to follow my career track and I have to get to that next level in my career track. Sometimes you go sideways for a long time. You may go up, you may go down. And it also may mean that you need to look into other organizations to build those leadership skills. It absolutely works. I am here to sit right in front of you today to show an example that it does work for you. So keep your options open is what I would tell you. Thanks, Gioia.
Fantastic. Thanks, Sadie. Well, certainly you can see our passion for the employee associations and the abilities and the opportunities that are provided through them. I am very active myself. I believe in them wholeheartedly. And you mentioned being able to grow and get the bigger picture, and especially with the help of a mentor who helped push and pull. And certainly all of the employee associations provide mentoring opportunities here. So for people who are interested, great opportunity there. And you always mention relationship capital. And I had never heard that expression used so succinctly before. It's one of my favorites and something I will always take with me, Sadie, so thanks. So Anna, what or who was the most significant influence in your decision to pursue a career at the FAA?
I want to say I don't have a particular person, but I want to say multiple people since I stepped foot in the agency. As Sadie's Perez is actually my first person that I met. She took me in as an intern, and she exposed me to different leaders at FAA. She took me to conferences. I was so exposed that I fell in love with the agency. That's why I didn't want to leave. I was an intern for 1.5 years. Then I became a contractor. From a contractor, I became a temp, and now I'm on permanent. And I am so grateful for Sadie for exposing me to so many people. And that's what I don't have one person. I have multiple people because I met so many amazing people. Even the agency mission. I don't see myself leaving the agency. I want to explore more within the agency.
Fantastic, Anna. So you actually brought up an important point that some of us should probably think about. I know we hire interns every semester now. There's one in the spring, one in the summer, one in the fall. And it is really important that we take those interns and we expose them to people, to places, to the mission, to what the agency does, so that we can grab amazing people who will fall in love, like Anna, like Sadie. And it is important to go ahead and expose. So thanks for pointing that out. Okay, Shelley, what attracted you to being in a position of leadership, and how do you assess what's right for you?
So I'll address what attracts me first. What attracts me is obviously, to contribute in a larger way. To be on the front side of change. I love change. I was always told it's the spice of life, embrace it. And I like to be challenged, and I like to grow and learn. How I assess if something is right for me is, I'm a mom and now a grandmother, and family is very important to me. And it becomes part of my equation when I assess if something is right for me, because I need to be able to give 110% to both. And that is very, very important to me. And when I accepted the detail to Washington, D.C. in the air traffic organization in the director's position, that was a big step for me. That was a difficult decision for me. My daughter was just getting her driver's license during some of that period. I grew up in my hometown. I still live in that same town, and I'm accepting a position out away from that. But when I assessed what was right for me, is how I really landed in the position that I am in now, in the senior advisor position, because it allows me to still be a leader, because leadership comes in a lot of ways. Leadership is about influence. I participate in a national level in this role. I advise and counsel very senior leaders. I get to make a difference, to make change. And that is how I know that it's right for me, is I can do all of that and still be an awesome mom. And I'm having a blast being a grandmother. It is certainly a new chapter in life, but I need to be able to be successful at both. I can't have to do something. I would find that frustrating.
I completely understand what you're talking about. So I've never heard that change is the spice of life. I might actually borrow that and steal it, with your permission, of course. But it is a good way to look at change. And I have also been a change agent most of my life and really enjoy it for some of the reasons that you mentioned. But you mentioned something really important, and that is family. And one of the things I think we sometimes overlook as women, especially those of us who do have families and have careers that we want to be in and we want to lead everywhere we go and we want to give 110%. The FAA is a fantastic place because of the benefits that we have, because of the leaves that we have, and the access to the things that we have, including childcare and other things that a lot of other places just don't have. And so it has always been an amazing opportunity. And I myself tried for a long time. It took me 30 years to become a Fed. So I'm always fascinated by people who are able to do it right away. But I really appreciate that. And the last thing you said, that leadership is actually all about influence. And that's something that we should all really think about. And plus, we all lead from where we are, right? So we all influence people every day. So thanks so much, Shelley. I appreciate it. So Dee, looking back, what have been some of the benefits you have received personally, professionally, or otherwise from your leadership experiences?
That's a loaded question. And let me apologize in advance. You may hear some booming in the background. That is the sound of freedom, as we like to say. But there's training happening at Quantico Marine Base. So some of the benefits. I am one of those people who get joy from watching others succeed. And so I can really, I really relate to Shelley and the story about being a mom and being able to balance it all and being able to be along for the ride as you watch your children grow and prosper. I enjoy watching the light bulb come on, and that's from an early age, even up through careers. We do a lot of work with STEM and outreach. I do a lot of work with FAA with STEM and outreach, but I also do a lot in my community because there's no better feeling for me than to watch a student struggle with something, and then they get that aha moment. There's just nothing like it, and I live for that. And so to be able to influence that aha moment is one of my greatest joys. as it relates to employees, I will share that having been a military spouse, moving around the world, the country, my husband did the world, I only did the country because I had young ones. I will tell you that starting over every 2 to 3 years is a very difficult thing to do. And every 2 or 3 years, you start over, you work very, very hard to prove yourself and gain credibility. And as soon as you do, it's off to the next duty station. So for me, it was really important to put myself in a position where I could encourage and empower women oftentimes, but I have had a few military dads as well, but to encourage them and empower them to be able to move forward with their careers, even though they may have to take a step back. There's nothing wrong with taking a step back and regrouping. It's okay to do that, but learn from it and continue to move forward. The other thing is, for me, it's very important to be able to identify and nurture passion. It's good to be good at something. It's even better to like what you're good at. And so being able to identify those things that you're both good at and that you enjoy doing is very important when it comes to building a career. So that's another thing that's extremely important to me, and one of the things that I use a lot in mentoring and coaching others. In terms of another benefit, and this will be the last, that I've gotten from leadership is also the ability to leverage my personal experiences to help others. I've had a lot. They have been rich, some good, some bad, some in between. But again, being able to use that as a stepping stone for someone else, it doesn't make sense to watch someone struggle when you can provide something that can help them move forward. And I had a mentor that always told me that if you don't take the time to do it right, when will you have the time to do it over? And I have repeated that consistently. So that's those are just some of the things that I would say that I believe are benefits to leadership, is that you get to influence people in those ways.
Fantastic. Great advice. And I love the sound of freedom. So thank you. You know, one of the things you talked about was joy and other success. And I think that that's something that oftentimes we forget or we might not look out for. And there is a lot of joy and personal growth that comes from being able to help other people. And when you talked about influencing the aha moment, along with some of the other phrases that I'm going to steal from today, that's a really good one. That's one to really take away with us. And then the idea that we need to, and somebody else mentioned this earlier, I think maybe Sadie did, the idea that you can step back, you can go sideways, that your career doesn't have to be this upward trajectory, and that there are lots of opportunities that come from that way, and to help people identify what they're good at and what they enjoy. That's the important part of the day, right? If we all get to come in, be good at what we do and actually enjoy it, what an incredible gift. And finally, to leverage our personal experiences. That is very true. I had a mentor that said something similar to yours, and his expression was, you always take the time to do it right the second time, right? So how about doing it right the first time? So very good thoughts. Thank you, Dee. So Jennifer, what skills do you use most often in your leadership roles?
So I really like Dee's story about moving around with the military. I grew up and right next to Navy Jacks, so I was there all the time, but I got brand new friends every 2 or 3 years. So that really leads me to what I'm going to try to talk about, which is building those coalitions and building your network. There's people that I have that are my sounding board, that keep me sane, that keep me on track. I know I call Shelly a lot on the labor side, so I'm sure she's definitely one of them. And just as you go, and even like Sadie said, you know, moving sideways, moving backward, you're building those relationships and taking those people with you as you move forward. I still have tons of friends that I only had for a couple of years back in Jacksonville, Florida. So.
Fantastic. Very important points. Building a coalition and network, and make sure you take them with you. And I think that's something that is important to think about, and making sure is we can always need somebody to lean on or somebody to give us feedback. And it's the people that know you the best that will give you the best advice a lot of times. So thanks, Jennifer. Okay, Sadie, other than your obvious natural ability for leadership, how have you built your leadership skills over the years?
Great question, Gioia. I would say that, I think I shared a little earlier about, the nonprofit stuff definitely helped. But basically leading from where I was, from the standpoint of volunteering for things that people didn't want to do, I would do it, kind of it. And what it did for me was help me build relationships once again, but it also helped me see bigger picture, and understanding the full impact of the work that I was doing or my colleague was doing. It helped me build my vision and see strategically when I did lead from where I was. But yeah, I would say signing up for things when I probably didn't have any business doing them, it helped me with my experience. The other piece that I would say that, and I say this from a woman's standpoint as well as a minority standpoint, is being mobile. I often throughout my career was able to take details to DC quite a bit, back and forth. I mentioned New Jersey. And it was the fact that, and like Anna's family, it was like, no, mija, you could stay right here and work in Fort Worth. You don't need to go anywhere else. Family first. But it was the traditional mindset that you have to keep everybody safe. But once they see me spread my wings and see my successes, I don't have better cheerleaders than I do in my family of my career and the choices that I've made. They often tell me how proud I am, but I've also mentored a lot from the standpoint of taking someone else with me. I had a mentor that taught me that. And I learned from mentoring people and refreshing my leadership skills and like Dee seeing that aha moment, or like seeing someone like Anna grow into, the fine woman I just can't wait to see, her future and what that holds. That in itself, built my leadership skills. So, lead from where you are, expand your comfort zone, be willing to travel. And also, one thing I think we kind of touched on it, sideways and so forth, but find a mentor. I've always had a mentor in my life, and I've had a few in a handful, and some unofficial, some official. But like Jennifer said, it's that sounding board of, am I losing it here, or is this person going off? Can you get me back to where I need to be, where it's a safe space to do that instead of kind of reacting with emotion. We don't talk about that much either, but sometimes women in leadership, you have that stigma of, if you show any type of emotion, that's just a woman being emotional. And sometimes we have a little bit harder of a road in the sense of really kind of keeping our composure and really building those competencies to really work harder at it. And that comes with having sounding boards and mentors to be able to do that with. So yeah, I think that in a nutshell, that would be my advice to the younger generation out there today.
Thank you. Well, we're the same generation, and I love that advice. Thank you for sharing it. I think what you talked about was leading from where you are. It's definitely important. What you do is important, what every single one of us does, and we are all leaders, where we realize it or not. You talked about volunteering for doing for what other people don't want to do. I used to joke my last position that I had before I came to civil rights that my job all day was doing what other people didn't want to do, and I loved it. So apparently, I'm that square peg in a round hole. So I understand that. Building relationships, getting the bigger picture, being mobile, which was something that was really an important point. I think being able to take that risk, get outside of your comfort zone and move someplace else, sometimes not only gives you the opportunity to grow and change as a leader, but also as a person, learning different skill sets, right? Meeting new people, those types of things. And then being a mentor and finding a mentor. And the last one you talked about was emotion. And that's something that's very interesting to me. I one time had, for years, people had said, you're so emotional, so emotional. One day somebody turned to me and said, no, you're just passionate. And that's something that I take with me. And I remember that. So if you see people and you think that they're showing some emotion, my guess is they're probably just passionate about what they're talking about. So thank you for sharing that. Okay, Anna, what attracts you to be in a position of leadership? And how would you assess what's right for you?
I would say passion, that's you just mentioned. And I'm gonna pick up on Dee and Sadie. Passion, enjoying your job. I honestly, that's why I'm here. I love what I do. I started mathematics, because basically what I do is mathematics in the computer. And I started sophomore year, I volunteered to be a mathematics tutor for freshman students coming in. And they loved my job that they offered me a mathematics tutor position. And I took it and I put that on my consultation of my major. So I had national security with mathematics, and I got internships doing mathematics. So honestly, I just follow my passion. I just listen to myself as, oh my God, like I really enjoy it. I do it, I love it. I do it every day. As you can see, we work together. It's something I surprise myself sometimes, because I expose myself without noticing and I learn. And I think that's where I can't wait for the future, as Sadie said, because I know that I'm going to expose myself even more and go beyond.
Fantastic. No, I appreciate it, Anna. Your passion and your dedication and the love for what you do has come through since the day I first met you, and you will never cease to amaze me. And when you were talking about tutoring and being in front of helping other people, my favorite time is working a booth with you and seeing you interact with people and helping to teach them while they're standing there, and they don't even realize that you're teaching them while you're standing there. You have an unbelievable gift, and I'm so grateful that you've chosen to be here and share it with us, and especially your passion for mathematics, because we definitely use that part of your brain a lot. So thank you so much for that input. Shelley, what or who were the most significant influences in your decision to pursue leadership at the FAA?
So I think I have, both a what and I have more than one who, but, the first who came from my very first director when I started working at the FAA. She tapped me on the shoulder and asked that I participate and represent the organization in a national level effort involving re-engaging with the unions and seeking to change an overall relationship that had existed for years and was quite tumultuous, if I might add. At first, I was a little intimidated, I won't lie. I was good at my craft. I knew my craft. I'd say I was one of the best at my craft. However, I was new to FAA and I did not know FAA all that well or the culture. And so I was a little intimidated, but I took that leap and I went to Washington, DC, and I sat in that bargaining room and was the only woman amongst 16 men that knew this agency inside and out. It was interesting. I was not intimidated. I did not need to learn how to play golf. I did not need to lingo sports because I couldn't beyond my home team. They needed me at that table for my expertise and my contribution. And so had, that opportunity that director gave to me, I took it. Had she obviously, believed in me, despite my having some intimidation, some reservations, she gave me the courage to do that. But once I got there, I knew I belonged there. And so I think getting over that, the what was the need for change. That was very driving for me, the need for change and the opportunity to be part of it. And certainly, my COO, Ms. Bristol, certainly influenced and gave me the courage to make a leap to move from one organization, the HRLR organization, into the air traffic organization, which felt a little like starting over, but not really. But it allowed me to continue to grow.
That's a great thought process. When you talked about somebody tapping on your shoulder and reaching out for you and asking for you to do something that was outside of your comfort zone and you felt intimidated, but then they gave you the courage to do it, what an incredible gift. And I know, you were talking about being new to FAA and new to the culture and being in a room where you were the only woman, and yet you knew that they needed your expertise and you knew that you belonged. and then your need to be able to help in the opportunity for change. And so one of the things that I want to share with everybody is, Shelley, you were that difference in my life. And when I came to the FAA, especially as a new Fed, I was completely at a loss. I had never worked in aviation. I had a different, very very good skill set, expertise in what I did. And I had a hallway conversation with you one day, and you were the one that said these words to me. And I hope people are listening, because they really did. They changed my life. They made me decide to change. I've dug in, and I'm so passionate about this agency and the mission and what I do. And so, Shelley, I definitely need to thank you for that. Okay, Dee, what are your most important leadership attributes that make you a successful leader today?
So for me, again, you know, I'm one of those people that didn't set out in the morning to become a leader. I set out to be a champion and to be an influencer, and just to be a cheerleader. And so I think that leadership is one of those byproducts of having passion around what you do, being excited about it and believing in it, believing in the why, and also enjoying watching people grow and develop and morph into something greater. So I would say one of the very important things for me in terms of attributes is I think being able to identify those things in people, being able to look at people and see the good, to see the strengths, but also to be able to see the opportunities for improvement. Because it's one thing to build upon something that's already good, but it's quite another to turn something completely around. And so I love the challenge. I love to have the opportunity to step in and just really empower somebody, encourage somebody to take that leap or take that next step. I think that's a very important attribute, is being able to just be able to find that inner quality. Another thing is, I think, being where they are, having that experience, having that transparency, being able to say, you know, I know what you're going through. I've been there. Here's how I can help you overcome it. I think it's a level of vulnerability that one has to be able to expose as a leader of themselves in order to get people to trust them and to be able to build the kinds of relationships that allow you to influence and be able to change people. So I think that's really important. And then one of the last things, but also probably one of the more important things to me, is perseverance. Stick with it. As a leader, it's really easy to charge ahead and say, you know what, we'll get back to you. We'll get back to that. Open your mind as a leader and take it all in. Take in the things that you like, the things that you don't quite understand, and quite frankly, address the things that you don't like or that you don't think will work, because it's really important to understand where that person is. Where are they coming from? What is driving that? And take the time to give some thought to it, give some credence to it. You may not change their mind, they may not change your mind, but that's the key, right? Is communications, opening that door so that they feel valued, even if their advice isn't taken, or even if their direction isn't taken. And I think, you know, as a leader, we have to sometimes be able to make ourselves vulnerable enough to say, you know what, I think I know, but you may know too. So let's see what you got. I think it's important to be able to do that. So just being able to bring people together on common ground, being able to respect everyone at the table, and showing that level of transparency and vulnerability that makes everyone feel that they are important and that they add value.
Great pieces of advice. One of the things that you said is to identify the strengths, but also look for the opportunities for improvement. I think sometimes those are things that we try to walk around or we try to avoid, but really that's for leadership. That's the crux of leadership, right? That's the crux of getting in there and being able to help somebody get better at the things where they need help. And you talked about empowering and being where they are. And one of the things, Dee, that in all the interactions that you and I have had is you've always been transparent and vulnerable. And I think that that's incredible. It's something that I really look forward to interacting with you, because I always feel like I walk away having a better perspective for what's going on. And I really appreciate that in you. And thank you for sharing that. And the last one you talked about was perseverance. And that goes back to helping people when they're down, knowing where they are and helping them get through it, right? Sometimes you can't go over it, you can't go under it, you've got to get through it. So thank you for being able to share those thoughts. I really appreciate it. So panelists, as we get ready to wrap up here with our last question, it will be the same question for all of you. What advice would you give the audience on how to prepare to take on a leadership role? And let's start with Shelley.
Okay, so, some of it's going to be repetitive of what you've already heard today on what I would do. But, I think I'd start with be good at what you do, be professional, be flexible, diversify your knowledge. And that can be sideways. Diversify your knowledge, but don't try to be the expert. It really does take a village. Have a mentor, get a D in your life, somebody that has the passion for that and is going to see your strengths and bring you along is very, very important. But I think the single most important thing to me in preparing is build those relationships that you heard Sadie and Jennifer talk about. I think we've all talked about. Build those relationships and build that network that you can rely upon of experts as you move throughout your career. I know my mentor 25 years ago gave me that advice. And what he said to me was, have a go-to person in every single field that you're going to need to interact with. Now you got to be willing to give back, because once you establish somebody as their go-to or your go-to, you become theirs. And so you have to be willing. Those relationships work two ways, but very, very valuable. Have some humility. Don't be afraid to fail, and don't shy away from opportunities. Would be my biggest advice in preparing for a leadership position.
It's great advice. Talked about being professional, good at what you do, have a diversity in knowledge, but don't try to be the expert. And I think that's one that's really important for all of us to try and remember, and to find a mentor, build those relationships, especially the networks of experts, so that you can have a go-to person and you can be there, so you can be symbiotic, and to have humility and take on those opportunities. Great advice. Thank you, Shelley. Okay, let's move on to Anna. Anna, what about you?
I want to say what Shelley said, be flexible. And I think it comes up to me and not be the expert, and be able to be a listener to others and be able to learn and understand being that team player, I think is very important when you're in a leadership position.
Thanks, Anna. You talked about being flexible, being a listener, being able to learn, be teachable. And that's an important one. I think sometimes we all think once we get into leadership that we don't need to still learn and that we don't need to be teachable. And those are actually, we're always reaching up, we're always reaching down, and we're always reaching across. So thanks, Anna. Good advice. And how about you, Sadie?
Thanks, Gioia. I echo a lot of what's already been said by my colleagues here, but I think I would, just reiterate the fact of, reach out of your comfort zone, in the sense that, you should not get too comfortable where you are, kind of to the context of what Shelley meant by subject matter expertise. If you stick to that one expertise, you're missing opportunities to grow. The other is something that, in addition to always have a mentor to help you through, the toughest times, but also being that guide and light for you. The one mentor that I was fortunate enough to meet and had a great impact on my career that I met while I was president of the coalition. There was one term that she learned from her mentor and she taught me, and I've mentored many, and it's been my guiding light. It's stay fit. Fairness, integrity, and trust. And that's, be fair to people, treat people with fairness as you'd want to be treated. Integrity, something to, I don't know if it was Dee or Shelley who said it, but be willing to speak truth to power, but speak truth to power professionally. Be really good at what you do and really be able to support your case. But, most leaders that I've gained respect from respect the fact that I challenge them in a sense of not just being that follower and being that groupthink. And then trust, obviously, that's something, especially in leadership. If you don't have all three of those, especially trust, if you've lost that, then you have no real future as a leader, wherever you are, in the sense that people won't trust you and bring you to the table when they most need those go-to people, because trust is a huge piece of that. So I would say stay fit throughout your career. That's what I got.
Fantastic. Thank you, Sadie. Talked about reaching outside your comfort zone, finding a mentor that will be your guiding light, and staying fit, which is fairness, integrity, and trust. And in that, being able to talk your truth to power professionally. And I know, Sadie, that you are one of my mentors. I know you know that, but you are definitely the guiding light in my life. And without a doubt, I am always grateful that you always talk truth to power and professional, and you don't just go with the status quo. You've been willing to let me take risks and step out and really take those very different opportunities and challenges, and I'm very grateful for that. Very, very good advice. Thank you. All right, Jennifer, how about you?
So I'm probably going to say a lot of what's already been said. I'm totally going to steal that fit from Sadie. I love that. But having other folks in other lines of business that know their piece of the pie, like having the data analytics for system operations like Anna is integral for us. So to have that piece there. And I would also say to have courage, sometimes like Shelley was saying, sometimes you are the only women in some of these meetings. To have the courage to have a differing opinion, you've earned the right to be there. You've earned it through your education, through your experience. You are the expert when you sit there. So have the courage to step out.
Fantastic. So as you mentioned, others in line of business, and certainly Anna is the perfect example of that. I know she's always reaching out and giving other people her expertise, and having the courage to know that you have the expertise. That's definitely an important one. I know it's one that I often have suffered from in my life, as I mentioned earlier, with Shelley being able to pat me on the back and give me that encouragement. But it's something that we don't talk about this a lot, but it's definitely something women have a tendency to be challenged in. So thank you for mentioning that. It's actually really important. All right, Dee, how about you?
Thank you so much again for allowing me to participate in this panel. It's been so enriching, and I've learned yet again from my esteemed panel members. I echo everything that everyone has said on the panel. I love fit. And Jennifer, the courage, yes, absolutely, right? Because that's sometimes that's all you have going into a situation. I would add to that, hone your craft as leaders. There's so much more to it than just the technical expertise. A lot of being a strong leader is not what you know, but what you show. So hone your craft. Another thing I would say is don't be afraid to change direction. Just because you start down a certain path doesn't necessarily mean you have to continue. If you see an opportunity to be a bigger influence, or to make a bigger impact, or to reach a particularly difficult person or persons that you've been trying to get to, come off the beaten path and follow them and be the wind beneath their wings. And then the last thing I would say is laugh. Laugh often. Laugh at yourself. It's okay. We do things sometimes that's really funny. Sometimes it's just funny to us. But the importance of being able to say, I'm really kicking butt here, but not everyone sees the value in that. Maybe I just need to take a laugh, not take myself so seriously, and continue to move forward. Don't continue to wait for the pats on the back, because if you do, you may be standing in the same place for a long time.
Thanks, Steve. Those are all great points. You taught us to hone our craft, that being a leader is more than the technical skills, excuse me, it's other things. And then you said something, it's not what you know, but what you show. I'm going to be stealing that for sure. That's a line that another line I'll be stealing. And then to change direction when it comes up, we used to talk about in another line of business I was in when I was a firefighter, actually, they used to say trust and adjust, right? So that's what it was. That's how we changed direction. And then to laugh often. And we started today off with the laugh as we all got on this call. And I really do want to thank everybody. And then you talked obviously about moving forward. So as we do move forward and we're leaving here today, I'm very grateful for every single one of you. And I want to say thank you to each one of our distinguished panelists for her time and dedication today and for her service every day. Thank you, all of you out there in the audience, for joining us. And please keep in mind that these are just a few of the women who are part of the history of empowered women in aerospace. Their desire to serve their country makes them role models for all women. Please check out Eventbrite, FAA Today for information on our other FAA Women's History Month events, including speed mentoring, and we have some mock interview panels coming up if those are skills you'd like to learn. And finally, if you have any questions for any of us, feel free to email outreach@faa.gov, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. Until then, stay safe, everybody.